Welcome to the Chronicles of a Cheating Wife channel. A new story every day. Don't forget to subscribe. Her breathing was too light. You always were in second place. I felt it in the hush of the bedroom before I saw it, like a pressure change in the atmosphere. The kind of shift that makes your ears ring, sets your heart pumping just a little too fast. I was standing in the doorway, not even sure why I was home so early. Maybe I'd forgotten my laptop charger, or maybe I just felt uneasy. I couldn't remember. All I knew was that Emily's breathing never sounded so delicate, so airy, unless she was lost in some moment she hoped no one would interrupt. Her hair fanned across the pillow. My pillow. The blanket slid halfway down her back, revealing the gentle curve of her shoulder. A slow rise and fall that spoke to the rhythm of her body. But she wasn't alone. There was a figure behind her, someone taller than she was, pressed intimately close. He had one arm thrown around her waist, the other snaking into her hair. In that first electric second, all I caught were tanned muscles, a quicksilver glint of some cheap bracelet, and the shape of his cheek brushing against her neck. I heard her murmur something. My name. No, not my name at all. She murmured his. Jason. Everything in me wanted to recoil, to vanish. But I stayed, even as my stomach turned sour and my breathing came in these savage, quiet bursts. I stayed to watch because I needed the truth hammered into my eyes. No illusions, no possibility of misunderstanding. I needed to see how her lips parted, how her body arched at his touch. They were lost in that moment, consumed. I realized I was trembling, not with adrenaline, but with a strange, horrified fascination. Her face. She looked peaceful, almost blissful. There was a flush to her cheeks that I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. My wife, with another man in our bed, panting softly in time to the movement of his hips. And the only sound in my own head was that relentless thought. You always were in second place. My vision blurred at the edges. I tasted something bitter at the back of my throat. An image flashed in my mind. Emily and me on our wedding day, cutting the cake, her laugh bright as sunshine. She'd worn daisies in her hair, and I thought I was the luckiest man alive. Now I felt like a stranger on my own planet. I could have shouted, could have lunged, but something told me not to. I waited one more breath, then turned away. My footsteps were light as I backed out. I needed to gather my head, needed a plan. The betrayal was so enormous it threatened to swallow me whole, yet a strange calm was sliding over me like ice water. I stepped into the hall, still able to hear muted moans, the creak of the mattress, the hush of her voice. I wondered if she ever spoken to me with the same urgency, the same desire. I made my way downstairs in a daze, pulled the front door open, and quietly walked out onto the porch. The sunlight hit me in a jarring wave, too bright, too real, and everything inside me screamed that my life was a lie. But I didn't scream out loud. I just swallowed, forced myself to breathe. My heart hammered so violently that I could almost see it pulsing against my chest. Seconds, minutes, maybe hours passed. At some point I realized my phone was in my pocket, vibrating with a notification. A text from my boss. Something about a server issue. I typed out a short reply. Sure, I'll check it soon. And pressed send. The mundane normalcy of that moment contrasted so starkly with the catastrophe upstairs that I almost laughed. Then the next wave of nausea came. I wanted to barge back in and throw him out the window, watch him sprawl on the front lawn. But a voice in me whispered, "You always were in second place," and it told me to be careful. Do not be the fool who rages and loses clarity. Do not let them see you break. So I left. I got into my car and drove. At first, I had no destination, just circles around the block. Maybe I thought that if I gave them time, they would finish, he would leave, and I wouldn't have to witness the final details. My imagination tortured me the entire time. Emily's soft moans, his heavy breathing, their sweat. My fists tightened around the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Eventually I ended up at a diner. I ordered black coffee and some fries, unable to eat or taste anything. My thoughts spun. How long had this been going on? Who was he? Why did she choose him? The questions scalded me, but the answers wouldn't come. I glanced at the phone again, wanting to call my friend, wanting to call my father, anyone. But I didn't want pity. Didn't want the humiliating sympathy in their voices. An hour later, I drove back. Her breathing was too normal now. No trace of the earlier hunger. When I entered, the house was quiet. She was in the kitchen, hair tousled, t-shirt thrown on. Her cheeks still held a post-intimacy flush. There was a faint tremor in her hand as she stood at the sink, rinsing a glass of water. She looked at me in surprise, like she hadn't expected me until evening. "Rick, you're home. Why wouldn't I be?" Her eyes widened, but she forced a polite smile. You said you had a busy day. I wasn't sure. My gaze flicked to the living room. My couch. That was where they did it too, I guessed. Where they laughed behind my back. Possibly. My imagination roared. Instead of confronting her outright, I just set down my keys. "I forgot something earlier," I said vaguely. "Saw your car was still in the driveway." She cleared her throat. "I felt sick, came home early," she lied. The lie itself was so thin, so obvious. I nodded as if I believed her. And that moment, I realized, I've already begun. I've begun a calculation, how to kill trust in 3 steps. Because yes, I'd known trust was dying. But I wanted to be the one who put the knife in it, ended it on my terms. Step 1. Gather all the evidence. Leave no illusions. My voice was calm. "I see. Get some rest." She blinked, uncertain, maybe expecting me to reach for her forehead like I cared about her fever. Then she turned away, letting the water run in the sink. I watched her shoulders tense under that t-shirt, saw the goosebumps on her arms. She knew something was off, but she had no idea what or how far it would go. That evening, we barely spoke. I stayed in my office, staring blankly at code on my monitor. I could still smell him in the house, though, the faint musk of cologne that wasn't mine. It made my stomach tighten. My phone pinged me again. My father sending a random message about their new retirement hobby. My mother wanting to know if we come for Thanksgiving. My life felt suddenly like a costume, a facade, and I wore it while a hole the size of a crater opened inside my chest. The next day, I rummaged through the stack of mail. Bills, ads, a postcard that almost stuck to the back of a pizza coupon. The moment I touched it, I felt a flutter of dread. The front was some tacky beach scene. On the back, in thick letters, "Don't forget that night. You were fire. Jason." It was addressed to Emily. At my address. With my last name. He clearly thought she was alone here, or that I'd never checked the mail. I stood there in the hallway, hearing the whistle of the tea kettle from the kitchen. She was humming some tune, oblivious. My hand curled around the postcard. The edge bit into my palm. I wasn't angry that he wrote it. I was angry that he assumed I didn't exist. I didn't say a word to her. I slipped the postcard into my back pocket. She stepped out of the kitchen, took one look at my face, and hesitated. Maybe she saw something unspoken. "Rick, is everything okay?" I answered too lightly. "Of course." She gave a nervous little laugh. "You look pale. Work stress." I just shook my head. Work stress, sure. Let her think that. In the back of my mind, I repeated. Step 1 is almost done. I have the evidence. I have no illusions. But I want more. I want the full scope. That night, after she fell asleep, I carefully fished her phone off the nightstand. She used a simple lock pattern that I'd seen her trace 1,000 times. The phone opened. My hands trembled, but my mind was focused. I scrolled through messages, pictures, emails. There he was, Jason. Their messages were a swirl of texts and photos, some mild, some not. Scrolling further, I found contact after contact. Some with male names, some with initials, some with no real labeling. The deeper I went, the more I realized Jason wasn't the only one. Or if he wasn't the first. She had a list. A long list. 17 men in total, if I counted right. Sickness crawled up my throat. 17. And each time, there were messages about meetings, hotels, quick stops at our house when I was away. Some messages hinted at things that made my skin burn. I noticed times and dates that corresponded to days I'd been out of town, or sick in bed upstairs while she told me she was off for groceries. My life truly was a joke. My marriage was a carnival of deception. The phone shook in my grip as I read the last few lines from a conversation with someone named he. My results came back positive. "Are you sure you're okay?" She hadn't even replied. My stomach twisted. Positive for what? I took a long moment to steady myself. Then a new clarity set in. Step 2. Break the illusions for everyone else. Don't scream or rant at her. No, that's too kind. I typed a single message and copied it to each man. "Congratulations. You might be infected. Go get checked. My wife is a carrier." I'm not emotional about it. Just informing. I pasted that message into every chat that had the slightest hint of intimacy, 17 times. Then I put her phone back, so gently, exactly where she'd placed it. She never stirred. She'd trust her phone to be as she left it. But by the time morning came, all her lovers would receive that note, watch it appear on their screens, and wonder. Some might panic. Some might ask her questions. Some might block her altogether. Regardless, the illusions would be burned. They'd know about me, and I'd confirm the disease she'd spread, metaphorical or literal. It didn't matter. She was toxic. So was Jason. So were they all. I crawled back into bed, pressed my head into the pillow, and stared at the back of her shoulder. She was turned away from me, sleeping softly. She smelled of lavender lotion, the same smell that once made me nuzzle close. Now it made me feel hollow. She was my wife, yet I realized she'd never truly chosen me. I was a convenience, a stable presence, the second place. And I hated her for that, but more than that, I hated myself for not seeing it sooner. I felt her stir in the early dawn. She rolled onto her back, eyes flickering open. I kept still, feigning sleep, but I could sense her glancing at me, sense her internal tension. She must have felt that psychic crack in the room, the break of what once passed for normal. She said nothing. The day passed in a fog. I went to the office, fielded some calls, pretended to care about software bugs. My coworker asked if I was feeling okay. "Just a headache," I lied. By midday, I got a text from her, a short, "We need to talk." I typed back, "Not now. Tonight." When I came home, I found her pacing the living room, phone in hand, face taut with anger or fear. "Rick, what the hell is going on?" "My phone. These men. They're accusing me of all kinds of things." Did you write to them?" I set my bag down carefully. "Yes." She blinked in disbelief. Then her voice rose. "You have no right to mess with my private." I cut her off, calm as ice. "I have every right. You're my wife." She opened her mouth to retort, but no words came out. Instead, she started pacing again, her hair swinging in restless arcs. Then she spun on me. "Have you lost your mind? Telling them I'm a carrier. Do you realize how humiliating that is? How insane you look?" I met her gaze. "It's just an announcement, a courtesy for their own health, presumably. You might be carrying something else after all. You never checked, right?" Her cheeks flared red. "Are you calling me diseased?" I stared at her, feeling an almost inhuman calm. "I'm telling the truth. You've been with many men, Emily. 17, if we're honest. So yes, you might be infected." She started to cry. No, not cry exactly, but her voice shook with rage. "You had no right to rummage through my phone. God, you're such a coward." I just listened, letting her words bounce off me. She was yelling, tears threatening to spill, voice cracking. The old me would have softened at her heartbreak, tried to comfort her. But now, I was quiet, stone-faced. I realized she couldn't stand that. She wanted a confrontation, a meltdown. She wanted an outlet for the guilt. I gave her none. Somewhere in the middle of her screaming, an image flashed through my mind. Jason behind her, whispering sweet things, telling her she was fire, telling her he couldn't wait to see her again. I pictured them on the couch, or in the bed. I pictured the way she curled her toes in pleasure. Suddenly, I could barely breathe. My fists trembled at my sides. But I channeled that fury into my next words. "Go to the bedroom," I said softly. "Pack your things. I'm clearing the house tonight." She gaped at me. "You want me to leave? This is my home too." "Not anymore." I walked over to the fireplace, struck a match, and watched the small flame flicker. The final step, eradicate her from my mind, from my space, from my memory. I pulled out an old box, heavy with keepsakes from our wedding, from our anniversaries. The dried lilies, the photo albums, even the t-shirt that smelled faintly of her perfume. One by one, I fed them to the flames. She gasped. "Rick, stop. Those are our memories. They're nothing," I said simply. My tone never rose above a murmur. I watched the pictures catch fire, corners curling in black smoke. Our wedding photo curled last. I glimpsed my own smiling face, full of love, right before it shrank under the heat. "You wanted new men, Emily. 17, or maybe more. So these tokens don't matter, do they?" Her voice cracked. "You're hurting me on purpose." I added another photograph to the fire. The two of us at the Oregon coast, arms wrapped around each other. "No, I'm just clearing territory." She pressed her hand over her mouth, tears finally escaping. "You can't do this." I turned, my eyes never leaving hers, and set the last item on the flames, her favorite perfume bottle. "Watch me." The fire hissed and sputtered, the sweet scent mixing with smoke. She coughed, stepping back. I let the flames devour everything. My heart hammered in my chest, but it felt necessary, like burning a diseased crop to protect the rest of the field. She didn't wail or collapse. She merely stared, tears sliding silently down her cheeks, and asked in a broken whisper, "Are you taking revenge?" I shook my head. "No, I'm finishing what you started." We stood there in silence, the only sound the crackle of flames. Finally, she turned and walked to the bedroom. For the next hour, I heard the rustle of garbage bags, the scrape of boxes, now and then a muffled sob. I stayed in the living room, watching the embers glow, the black ash swirling. Her phone lay on the coffee table, occasionally buzzing with new messages from men who'd seen my broadcast. My grin felt cold. Eventually, she emerged, dressed in worn jeans and a hoodie, hair pulled back. She carried a couple of suitcases, and behind her, 2 large black trash bags stuffed with clothes. There was no screaming now. No attempt to persuade me that it was all a misunderstanding. She understood that I wouldn't be swayed. This was the final step. The territory was cleansed. She was no longer my wife, not even in name. She paused in front of me, as though summoning the nerve to speak. "Where am I supposed to go?" I shrugged. "A hotel, Jason's place, your mother's house, doesn't matter. Just go." Tears welled in her eyes again. She opened her mouth, but no apology came. She just looked at me with this hollow sorrow. I stared back without pity, feeling the last vestiges of my old love crumble into dust. My chest hurt with that empty dryness that comes from having given everything once and gotten betrayal in return. She hefted her suitcases and walked out the door. Didn't slam it, didn't curse my name. Just the sound of rubber wheels on the porch step, the swish of plastic trash bags across the threshold. Then the quiet click of the lock behind her. It was done. I set the lock chain. Then I turned, studying the living room. The couch where they had embraced, the photograph frames I'd pulled from the wall. I left them empty, the hooks bare. The entire house felt hollow, but also calmer. The air didn't reek of hidden lies. Step 3 was done. Trust was murdered, memory erased, illusions destroyed. I let out a breath. The old me might have collapsed into grief, but I was beyond tears. I felt almost nothing, except for a faint metallic taste in my mouth. The next morning, I discovered she'd left behind a ring on the nightstand. Her wedding band. I picked it up, rolled it between my fingers. The message was clear. She was gone. I slipped it into my pocket, not sure if I'd ever do anything with it. Pawn it, maybe. Or drop it into the nearest river, letting it sink with the last of my illusions. I remember the first phone call from my mother after that. She wanted to ask about Thanksgiving, something about the turkey plans. I said we wouldn't be able to make it, no further explanation. She sensed something was wrong but didn't press me. That was a relief. I wasn't ready for pity, for well-meaning concern. I just needed quiet. Days passed in a numb haze. I disposed of everything that smelled like her. Shipped some of her leftover clothes to her mother's address. The couch. I left it. Couldn't bring myself to drag it out to the curb. It was too big, too heavy, too full of her ghost. So I just let it remain, a piece of furniture I hardly dared look at. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'd wake up sweating, haunted by images of them entwined. Her breathing so light, her lips parted in pleasure. I'd force myself to get up, splash water on my face, and remind myself, it's done. No more illusions. I took a leave of absence from work, claiming migraines. I needed time to figure out who I was now. My father texted me, "Son, everything okay? You've been quiet." I wrote back, "I'm fine, just busy," the standard lie. Because how do you tell your father that his precious daughter-in-law, who once seemed so sweet, had a string of men, that your marriage was a complete mockery? I found myself drifting to old memories. Our wedding day, the smiles, the honeymoon, the times we nearly tried for children, but decided, let's wait. Now I realized, let's wait, was always her line. She must have known she wasn't ready for that kind of commitment. Maybe never would be. And it made me wonder if I was blind, or if she was just incredibly good at lying. Even after she was gone, I would smell her perfume in random corners of the house, as though her ghost lingered. Sometimes I stumbled on small things, a hair tie, a half-used lipstick, a note with a grocery list scrawled in her looping handwriting. Each time, I tossed them in a box destined for the trash. I refused to let the memories anchor me. Occasionally, I imagined calling those men, especially Jason, just to see their reactions to the text I sent. But I knew it would be pointless. My message had done its damage. If there was any sense of loyalty or camaraderie among them, it must have shattered when they realized how many others she'd been with. I pictured the chaos in their separate lives, the confusion, the fear they might have contracted something from her. It was a petty, grim satisfaction. This was how trust dies, in a swirl of suspicion and unanswered questions. Let them feel it too. One afternoon, I found a small envelope in the mail. My name, neatly typed, no return address. I opened it to see a single slip of paper. "Are you proud of yourself, man?" No signature. I stared at it, then crumpled it, and tossed it out. Maybe Jason, maybe someone else from that list. Outraged by my broadcast. Did it matter? No. Because step 3 was final. She was gone, and so was my old life. When I dared go back to the office, I felt like a ghost among the living. My coworker Joe slapped me on the back, said, "Hey, buddy, you all right? You look like you lost 20 pounds. I just forced a half smile. "Diet," I muttered. I wasn't about to share the truth with him or anyone else. Not yet, anyway. Let them think what they want. Maybe they guessed from my hollow eyes that something was deeply wrong, but no one pressed me. Maybe they knew better. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie in bed, stare at the empty side where Emily used to sleep. Sometimes I'd hear echoes of her laughter. Sometimes I'd replay the moment I caught her with Jason, how her lips parted for him with more passion than I'd ever felt. My chest would tighten, a vise around my heart, and I'd wonder if I truly had the strength to keep living this half-life. The silence was oppressive. But each morning I woke up, showered, got dressed, ate a piece of toast that tasted like cardboard, poured coffee that scalded my throat. Numbness was my new shield. On the 10th day after her departure, I found an odd sensation creeping in. Relief. It was subtle at first, just a hint of no longer waiting for the next lie to fall. Then it grew. My shoulders felt lighter. The weight of her duplicity no longer strangled me. Sure, I was alone, but it was my space, my life. Not a stage for her secrets. I started to find small joys in simple things. An old record I used to love, the morning quiet with a cup of black coffee, the fact that nobody would undermine my sense of self anymore. I was still furious, still wounded, but I recognized that the destruction had also cut loose the illusions that weighed me down. Some nights, I'd dwell on the question of blame. Was it me? Did I drive her to seek others because I was boring or too rigid? In that swirl of guilt, I remembered each petty argument, each time I might have disappointed her. Then I forced myself to recall the raw evidence. 17 men. She chose to lie again and again, for who knows how long. That was no single slip. That was her pattern. One afternoon, her mother called me. A shaky voice on the line. "Rick, dear, it's Linda. Is Emily there?" I closed my eyes. "No, she's not. Have you seen her? She came to stay with me for a couple nights, said she had some trouble at home. Then she left. She looked." "Oh dear." Her voice broke. I swallowed, feeling pity for her mother, this older woman who had no clue how deep her daughter's betrayal ran. But I couldn't find the compassion to lie. "She's not here, and she won't be coming back." A long pause. Then Linda quietly said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Rick." I had no words of comfort, so I just hung up politely. That was that. My father tried to corner me about the situation a few days later, but I deflected him. I wasn't ready to open that door. And maybe he understood. He gave me space. 2 weeks after she left, I received divorce papers in the mail. She was the one filing, citing irreconcilable differences. I laughed under my breath. At least we agreed on something. I didn't fight it. Signed my name. Let her have the furniture, the couch, the bed, whatever she wanted. My sense of attachment to physical objects was gone. Just let her take them and go. All I truly wanted was my peace. The final confrontation came in the form of a text from Jason. "If you need to talk, call me." I stared at that message for a good 10 minutes. I tried to guess his angle. Guilt? Bravado? I had no interest in a conversation, but a perverse curiosity tugged at me. So I dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. "Rick?" "Yeah." He inhaled sharply. "Listen, man. I don't know how this all spun out of control. Emily told me you were separated. She never mentioned other men. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." I kept my voice cold. "She was my wife, Jason." A short silence on the line. "She told me. She said you were basically done as a couple. I mean, I had no idea about the rest. This fiasco with the texts. God, did you have to humiliate her like that?" "Like me." "You both humiliated me," I said flatly. "I just returned the favor." He sighed, sounding beaten. "I get it. You want your revenge. But this is messed up. She's a wreck, you know. She hasn't been picking up my calls. I think she's staying with some friend. I don't even know where. I just want to fix it somehow." I gave a bitter laugh. "Fix it? You can't. And you shouldn't. Move on. She isn't your responsibility." The words left a rancid taste in my mouth because some part of me still felt possessive anger, some primal corner of my mind that wanted to destroy him. But the rational part recognized that I was done. "Don't call me again," I said quietly, and hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, phone in hand, heart pounding. Despite everything, a tear slipped down my cheek, because I remembered the scent of her perfume, the shape of her laugh, the times she kissed me with genuine warmth. Or maybe I only imagined it was genuine. The confusion ached in my chest. Slowly, I composed myself. The silence in the house enveloped me. I realized how quiet it truly was. No footsteps from the next room, no gentle humming in the shower, no whispered complaints about the coffee being too bitter, just me and the hush. And yet that hush felt honest, unforgiving, but honest. It didn't lie. It wrapped around me like a cold but firm embrace. The divorce was finalized swiftly, because neither of us contested anything. She took the couch, the big TV, some random decor, the wedding gift plates. I let her. Each time someone asked me, "Why are you letting her get all that stuff?" I shrugged. I had no desire to cling to those objects. I wanted the emptiness, the void. At least that space was mine, uncorrupted by the scent of betrayal. In the final meeting with our lawyers, she wore a simple blouse and jeans, no wedding band. She wouldn't meet my eyes. When it was done, we stepped outside into the corridor. She took a breath. "Rick, I raised a hand, stopping her. "Don't." She swallowed. "Just, can you forgive me?" I studied her face, remembering how once I used to trace the line of her jaw with my fingertips. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. A pang of pity wrestled with my anger, but I shook my head. "I can't. Not now. Maybe not ever." She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Okay." And that was the last word she spoke to me. She walked away, hugging her bag to her chest, turning a corner. Gone. I stood there, exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, and felt something in me shift. A faint, battered sense of relief. A clarity that, no matter how painful, this was final. The following weeks were a process of dismantling what remained. I changed the locks, switched out the old bed for a new one, repainted the walls. Step by step, I purged the environment of anything that reminded me of her presence. Her name was no longer on the mailbox or the lease. Neighbors asked if she'd moved on, and I said yes. That was all. Some gave me pitying looks, some gossiped, but none of it mattered anymore. Late one night, I threw a few logs into the fireplace and sat there, letting the flames dance over them. The wood popped, sparks flying. I could almost see the ghosts of the photos, the postcards, the illusions I'd fed those flames. Emily's face flickered in my mind. Jason's too. Part of me wanted to hate them forever, to cling to that righteous anger, but it was exhausting. I was too tired. Hating them would mean they still controlled a piece of me. I refused. Instead, I told myself I was free. Free to rebuild. Free to face the truth that my marriage was never real in the sense I believed it to be. She'd always sought excitement, novelty, a rush. I was just stable ground. The second place. Now second place had stepped away, leaving her to chase whatever illusions she had left. I started to sleep better. The nightmares receded. Work welcomed me back, and slowly, I found a new routine. I replaced the living room couch with a plain leather chair I found on sale. I bought new sheets for the bed, plain white. I even changed the brand of soap in the bathroom, because the old fragrance reminded me of her. One Sunday, my father called me to chat. Normally I avoided these calls, but something made me answer. We talked about neutral topics at first. The weather, local news. Then he said, "Son, your mother and I love you. We don't know all the details, but we want you to remember that." I closed my eyes, feeling a tightness in my throat. "I know. I appreciate it." He paused. "If you ever want to visit." "I will," I said quietly. "Just not now." He didn't push. We ended the call on a gentle note. And for the first time in months, I felt a sliver of warmth that wasn't overshadowed by betrayal. The ache in my chest was still there, but it was no longer raw. It was turning into scar tissue, something I could live with. At work, I poured myself into projects, anything to keep my mind from drifting. Some of my colleagues noticed a difference. Joe, half joking, said, "You're working like a man possessed." I simply responded with a half smile. There's nothing else to do. But behind that curt reply, I felt a flicker of possibility. Maybe, eventually, I'd find a new reason to care about life. Maybe someone else would come along, or maybe I'd stay single for the rest of my days. Either way, I was determined to do it on my terms. The messages from Jason or her other so-called lovers stopped. She never tried to contact me again. Sometimes, I found myself scanning social media out of morbid curiosity, but she blocked me, or maybe deleted her accounts. Good. Better for both of us. I pictured her sometimes, where she might be, who she might be with. That old jealousy rose, but it felt distant now, like remembering a burn that still itched but wouldn't open. I allowed it to pass. Weeks turned into months. The divorce was an accepted reality. My official documents arrived, stating the final decree. I placed them in a drawer, unopened for a while. Eventually, I read them fully. It was all so clinical, an official stamp on the disintegration of a marriage. No heartbreak recognized in the eyes of the law. Just signatures. Fine. I started a new habit. Morning runs in a nearby park. It cleared my head, gave me small goals to chase. First, run a mile without stopping. Then 2, then 3. Pushing my body gave me a sense of quiet accomplishment. I wasn't second place to anyone there. I was just me, clocking miles on the trail, sweat dripping, lungs burning, but feeling undeniably alive. Sometimes I'd run until exhaustion, then come home, gulp water, stand in the shower letting it pound against my back. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed new lines in my face, new hollows under my cheeks. But my eyes were sharper, like I'd shed a layer of naive trust and grown a rough shell. Little by little, the house became my sanctuary again. I put a small desk in the spare bedroom for personal projects, a place to tinker with old electronics or read. I'd open the window and let in the breeze, watch the leaves change color as summer slipped into fall. Silence was my companion, but it was no longer suffocating. It was truth. It was real. Then came a day when I found a pink envelope slipped under my front door. No address. I recognized her handwriting. My pulse throbbed. I held it up to the light, hesitating to read it. Curiosity won out. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "I don't deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry I lied. I never meant to break you. Maybe you won't believe that, but it's true. I hope you find some peace, Rick." Initially, I reread it a few times, uncertain what I felt. The anger I'd expected didn't flare. Instead, it was a hollow sense of finality. I folded the note neatly and slid it into the trash. Her apology was too late, too small compared to the damage done. Yet a part of me felt oddly vindicated that she acknowledged it was her doing. Perhaps that was enough. I wandered into the kitchen, flicked on the coffee maker, listening to the quiet drip. Silence pressed around me. I found myself whispering, "I loved you once," and I could almost hear the house murmuring back in its hush, as if to say, that love was real, but it's gone now. I stepped outside onto the porch, coffee steaming in my hand. The autumn air was crisp. The street was quiet, just a neighbor walking his dog. I remembered the day I found them in bed, hot, still air, the sun glaring. Now, the breeze carried a chill, marking new seasons. A part of me shuddered at the memory, but I breathed through it. The wound was there, but it wouldn't bleed forever. That night, I lay in bed, eyes half closed, mind drifting. I pictured 3 steps, a methodical approach. Step 1. Gather evidence, see the truth. Step 2. Destroy the illusions, let no one remain ignorant. Step 3. Eradicate her from my life and memory. Each step was a blow to the trust I'd once valued. If that trust had to die, then I'd be the one to pull the trigger. And I had. I turned on my side, exhaled, and felt an odd calm settle over me. I still loved her, in some dark corner of my heart that refused to let go completely. But that love was a ghost, overshadowed by the knowledge that I deserved more. The final thought that echoed in my mind was, "This silence, it doesn't lie." I closed my eyes. And in that silence, I slept. No lies, no illusions, no second place. I was just me, and that was enough.